How's it going, everyone? I am so excited to bring you today's video. It is a Pokemon trading card game deck profile video for a deck that was legal in the RS to PK format, aka Ruby Sapphire to Power Keepers format. Now, this is kind of a made-up format made up by Jason Klaczynski, but this deck was also legal in the 2006 World format, so if you want to play a format that actually happened, you could also play that in order to have this deck at full power. This deck is just by far and above one of the most fun and challenging Pokemon decks to play. It's simple to pick up, but it's also very rewarding for you making very complex game plans. It has a lot of different modes of attack. It has a lot of different modes of defense. And you really get to use every piece of the buffalo in a sense. Like, you get to use every part of Pokemon, every mechanic of the game that makes it fun. Particularly evolution, which is one of my favorite mechanics in the Pokemon trading card game. This is the Queendoom deck profile, and I have it in entirely holo foil. It's taken me a very long time to get all of these cards, and I'm very excited. So, of course, you have to play 4 Nidoran Girl, 2 Nidorina, and 4 Nidoqueen. This may look a little bit weird if you're new to the Pokemon trading card game. Sometimes you'll play less of the middle evolution because of the card Rare Candy or similar cards that allow you to skip the middle evolution. Now, you do still need to play these Nidorinas because you only get to play 4 of each card in your deck, so you only get to play 4 Rare Candies, and sometimes you want to use Rare Candies on some of the other Pokemon in your deck. We'll get to that in a second. But also, your opponent can Trainer Lock you, and that's another way that you need to have Nidorina in order to attack. Nidoqueen is the primary attacker of the deck. Actually, it's probably the only attacker. You're rarely going to be attacking with the other Pokemon. It does come up, but very rarely. It has 3 really amazing abilities. It has great stats. It's a single prize Pokemon, which means that when it's knocked out, your opponent only gets to take 1 prize. It's not an EX Pokemon. The Pokebody allows you to have a lot of mobility with your position. You can retreat your Nidorinas and your Nidoran Girls for free. And then the Toxic allows you to double poison a Pokemon for 1 energy. Thanks to the power of Rare Candy in this format, you can do that as early as turn 2, or actually turn 1. Yeah, sorry, my bad, turn 1. You can have a Nidoran, Rare Candy into this, and then use the Toxic as early as turn 1 and start racking up that damage very, very quickly. It's an incredibly fast start that you have the potency of having in this format. And then the second attack is just a really, really heavy hitting attack. It's 3 energy, 1 fighting, 2 colorless for 40, and it does 10 more for every evolution Pokemon in play. So you can kind of see what's happening here. This is a deck that's going to reward you for playing and evolving all of your Pokemon. When you have a lot of evolved Pokemon in play, let's say you have 3 or 4, that attack's doing 80, 90 damage. It's a very strong attack. It's a very, very strong attack. And that's part of the reason why you want to play the full 4-2-4 line of Nidoqueen in this deck. Next up, you have to have the second best evolution card. Well, let's be real. It's the best evolution card in this format. You have to play Pidgeot. For those of you who are familiar with Pokemon, Pidgeot is one of those Route 2 classics from Pokemon Red and Blue version. This one you play a little bit less of because you can only use 1 of them per turn. You do play 3 of the Pidgeot to make sure you see it consistently enough, but because you're not using it for the attack, you're just using it for the ability, the quick search, and the quick search ability can only be used once per turn. That's really why you only want 1 in play. You want it early, but you only want 1. Because more of them, they're kind of superfluous. They kind of are redundant. They don't really add to your position other than giving you additional evolved Pokemon for your Nidoqueen's attacks. The way this Pokemon works is quick search. Once per turn, you can search your deck for any card. If you can get this Pokemon going as early as turn 1, thanks to Rare Candy, letting you skip that Pidgeotto straight into Pidgeot, then you can start tutoring your deck every single turn for any card you may be missing for your setup. It's one of the most powerful cards in this entire format. And recently, it was printed in a new set as a Pidgeot EX, and it has the same ability. And this ability is so powerful that even today, given all of Pokemon's power creep, it is still an ability that is probably going to see play today as well. One last part of the Pidgeot lineup in this deck, specifically for the Queendoom deck profile, is 1 Pidgeot Delta. This is a very cool and unique card. It is a Metal and Lightning Pokemon. It's a dual type Pokemon, so it can hit 2 different weaknesses if you do want to attack with it. And then it has the Delta Reverse ability. As long as Pidgeot has any hold-on energy cards attached to it, each player's Pokemon that has they can't use Pokepowers, basically. So this is a way that if your opponent has more powerful Poke Powers than you, let's say you've already used your Quick Search enough, you're already set up, you want to shut off your own or your opponent's Poke Powers. Their strategy is dependent on them, for example. You can go into this Pidgeot as an option, and that's another way you can sort of set up a secondary Pidgeot here that you might want to bench 2 Pidgeys in some matchups, basically. That's why you play the heavier line, the 3-1-3, particularly, well, technically 3-1-3-1. You get the idea. You want to lock the abilities in some matchups. That's why you play the tech Pidgeot Delta. That is the second evolution line. And then the third evolution line you play in this deck is the part of the namesake of this deck. Actually, it's part of the reason this deck is called the Queendoom deck profile. It is, or not deck, it's not called deck profile. I feel like I'm reading a script and the script is just wrong all of the time. You guys ever feel that way? It's a 1/1 Houndoom line. These are 2 really incredibly powerful cards. I actually love the holo foiling on this Houndoom. I don't know if it's going to come across on camera, but it has these really beautiful, I'm going to take it out of the sleeve. Hold up, guys. We got to show this off for the camera. It's got these really cool 3D Pokeballs. I think you can kind of see it there, down in the bottom corner, right there. It has these 3D Pokeballs in the Power Keepers reverse foils, and they just look so nice. The way this Pokemon works, and this is a Pokemon that is part of the reason why this deck is rewarded for advanced game planning, advanced thinking turns ahead, that type of thing, is it has the Pokebody Lonesome. This Pokebody is really disgusting. The way it works is if you have less Pokemon in play than your opponent, they can't use any trainer cards except for supporters. So that means no tools, no items, no stadiums, just supporters. That's all they have access to. This becomes a very powerful effect. The second you have this online, the second your opponent can't play the game in a lot of different ways. It's very integral to this strategy. You do only need the 1/1. Setting up a second one is superfluous. You kind of want to have a bench that looks kind of like 2 Nidoran, maybe a Pidgeot, and a Houndoom. And that's 4 Pokemon in play. That's going to power up your Power Lariat all the way to 40 plus 40, I think. Does it count this one? Yes, it does. So it'll be 40 plus 40. It'll be an 80 damage Power Lariat, which is huge. Plus, it'll keep you with a smaller number of Pokemon in play, assuming your opponent has committed their full 6 for the setup, which a lot of Pokemon decks in this format need to do. So this is the Doom part of the Queendoom, and it's a huge part of the deck. This is the reason why this deck is so powerful. You can set up Pidgeot Delta plus Houndoom for incredibly disgusting locks. Lock your opponent's Poke Powers, lock their items, their stadiums, their tools, and all of a sudden half their deck just does nothing. I have a few more Pokemon in this list that are tech Pokemon that I like to play. You don't necessarily need to play these. You could play more copies of Mr. Briney's Compassion, but I do play 1/1 Milotic. These are the Milotic from, I believe, Hidden Legends. I do like the Feebas from this set because it can attack for 10 with 1 energy, but there is a Feebas that also protects itself from all bench damage. This is one of the most beautiful cards ever printed. It has a really good effect. The effect is called Healing Shower. When you play it, it heals all damage in play, both yours and your opponent's. This is good when you're facing off against spread decks like Jolteon, decks that are trying to stack a bunch of damage in your play field. Is that the right word? In your bench, basically. You can play this, clear all that damage, undo all of the work that they did with their Pokemon, and just kind of set them back all the way. It's a great comeback card. You can do it surprise in 1 turn thanks to being able to play Feebas and Rare Candy in this format in the same turn. And then, of course, there's a card later on that lets you recycle this and spam it basically in the matchups where you need to if you have to. It's also another evolved Pokemon, so it can help power up Nidoqueen if it does sit around in play. Just a really strong card, really strong option to have in this deck. The last Pokemon in this deck is 1 copy of Holon's Magneton. Of course, you have to have the reverse holo. So Holon's Magneton is basically like your 5th double rainbow. The way it works is when you attach it from your hands to a Pokemon, you have to return an energy attached to that Pokemon to your hands. So it's kind of like a bounce land from Magic the Gathering. If you've ever played Magic the Gathering, there are some cards that they're like lands, they're dual lands or double lands, and you can play them, but they return a land to your hand. That's basically what this mechanic is. This card is very powerful because it's a Pokemon you can search for with your search cards, but it's also an energy. So it gives your deck a lot of that toolbox options. It's also not a basic, unlike some of the other Holon's Pokemon that are played in this format, so that you can't actually start with it and you can't actually brick with it and have a bad opening. This deck actually has very few bad openings. The only terrible one is like Phoebus but even that is not too bad because you can pick it up with Mr. Briney's Compassion, which we'll get into. And that rounds out all the Pokemon in my Queendoom list. You can choose to cut the Milotic. I've seen some lists, they cut the Milotic, they play heavier stage ones, like more Nidorina, more Pidgeotos. But I think having access to the Milotic is really important, especially in some matchups, the evolution matchups especially. Let's get into the supporters. So for the supporters, I'm playing a bit of a mix. I stole this idea from someone online. I think it's a very fantastic idea. You do have to play the full 4 Celios network from Fire Red, Leaf Green. Of course, you got to have the gorgeous reverse holofoils. They look so good. This is basically just tutor any Pokemon, and then tutor any Pokemon becomes tutor any card, because this guy's an energy, so you can search an energy, or you can search for Pidgeot, and Pidgeot can search for any other card, basically. So this card just becomes a very, very powerful demonic tutor in this style strategy. Got to play the full 4. It's like one of the best supporters for this deck. The next supporter that I actually think is really good in this deck is Copycat. Again, I've taken this line from someone else because they tested it a little bit more than me, but I think Copycat is one of the best inclusions because between Pidgeot locking your opponent's abilities and Houndoom locking up all of their trainer cards except for their supporters, your opponent's going to have a bunch of cards stuck in their hand, and so Copycat becomes very powerful. Your opponent has hands 7, 8 cards. Copycat all of a sudden becomes shuffle back, draw 7, shuffle back, draw 8, that sort of thing. It's a very, very strong draw supporter in this deck. Another really strong draw supporter in this deck that you pretty much have to play in this format is Team Rocket's Admin, or just Rocket's Admin, actually, I believe. This card is so incredibly good. If you've played modern Pokemon trading card game, then you'll know about Iono, you'll know about Iono? I'm not sure exactly what it is, but you'll also know about N, and this card is functionally the same as those cards. Both players shuffle their hands back, and you draw equal to your prize cards. This is the way you disrupt hands in this format, and you just got to play at least 2 of them. I think it's like one of the better cards. I'd play a third, but I had a lot of issue finding room, and I felt that the third Copycat was a little bit more important. Another card that I really like is Steven's Advice. However, I'm not so sold on these in this list. It is good, right? But your opponent might inadvertently play around Houndoom when they start playing around Steven's Advice as well. So I think maybe it's not the best idea to play a heavy Steven's Advice line when your opponent is going to try to play around Houndoom, and it also will play around Steven's Advice to some degree. I think maybe in the future, it might be best to swap one of these for a third Team Rocket's Return, or maybe swap one of these for a Versus Seeker, which is a really powerful card that allows you to reuse any supporter from your discard pile. So I think 2 Steven's Advice, it is a great card. It's like one of the best like raw draw cards in the game at the time, at least, actually ever probably. But it is one of those cards that your opponent can play around it, and it will also inadvertently play around the rest of your strategy. Now for the other supporters, one of these isn't a supporter, but we've got 2 Holon Mentor. In some matchups, some of your cards are dead, and then 1 Holon Scientist as well for the full Holon, tiny Holon package. We've got 1 Transceiver, 1 Scientist, and 2 Mentor. So the way these cards work, Holon Mentor says discard a card from your hands, search your deck for 3 Pokemon with 3 basic Pokemon with under 100 HP or 100 or less, and then add them to your hand, I think? Yeah. So this is basically like Pokemon Collector, but you have to discard a card. In some matchups, you have dead cards, right? Like in some matchups, you don't need your Pidgeot Delta. In some matchups, you don't need some of your stadium cards. We'll get into that in a minute. And this can just help you pitch those dead cards so that later in the game, when you get Rocket's Admin, you don't have a lot of bricks left in your deck when your opponent hits you with a powerful Rocket's Admin. Also, it's just a great setup engine. It's great because the 4th copy or the 3rd copy, Holon Transceiver, can also act as a Holon Scientist. So you can have double of this. I've actually considered going for 1 Holon Mentor and 1 Scientist and 2 Transceivers. The only issue with this is if you do prize your Mentor, it can make going first and setting up a little bit inconsistent. So I think that having 2 Mentors is necessary just for prize reasons. And then the third Mentor is functionally this Transceiver. Transceiver is kind of like an overpowered Versus Seeker, lets you search your deck or discard pile for a Holon specific supporter. And so early in the game, it can grab you Holon Mentor from your deck, And late in the game, it can either grab you the Scientist from your deck or from your discard pile if you've already used it. Scientist is very similar to Copycat. It serves a very similar role in this. It lets you just draw cards so you have the same number of cards in your hand as your opponent. Obviously very powerful when you're locking cards in their hands. And it also does discard that card, so it helps you get dead cards out of your deck. I think this tiny package is actually a really genius deck building decision, and I honestly can't remember who I copied it from, but shout out to them, I guess. All right, next trainers. These are the more the items, the stadiums. I've got 4 rare candy. I think rare candy, it speaks for itself. It just speeds up the deck incredibly. It makes it so that you can do stuff as early as turn 1. I can either turn 1 Toxic, turn 1 Quick Search. And then, honestly, they just look amazing. You got to play the reverse hollows from Sandstorm, the very first printing of rare candy. It's like one of the prettiest cards ever printed. It might be in my top 5 printed TCG cards of all time, if not my number 1 favorite card printed in a trading card game of all time. It's just a gorgeous card. Absolutely beautiful. The way it shines in the light, when you draw it, you just feel good, even when it's dead, even when it's a brick. Say less. You got to play 4 in this deck. It's a stage 2 deck. It's an evolution deck. Rare Candy is really good in this format. You just got to play it. For the other items, there are no more. Oh, wait, there's one more supporter. I forgot. Clutch. Mr. Briney's Compassion. So Mr. Briney's Compassion, another reverse hollow from the, not from Sandstorm, from Dragon, I believe. I think it's from Dragon, yeah. It might be from, yeah, it is from Dragon. I think that's the set seal for Dragon. This card's very good. It's basically just Scoop Up, but it's a supporter. So you can pick up a Pokemon, either fully heal one of your Pokemon. You can pick up a Pokemon to put yourself down lower numbers for your Houndoom to lock your opponent, or you can pick up your Milotic to reuse it, or you can pick up your Pidgeot Delta to unlock things. I think it's just too crucial in this deck and in this meta to play a Mr. Briney's Compassion. It can help you when you're getting item locked. It can help you move something out of your active. It can help you heal a damaged Nidoqueen, like worst case. I think it's one of the best cards. I wish I could fit a second one in or a Versus Seeker so that I could play more than one. It's definitely one of the strongest cards in this entire strategy. The only issue with it is that it's only good once you're already set up and you're in that middle game position and you're like streamlining stuff. And it's very rare that you actually end up needing the second one. And you can always tutor for the one pretty easily thanks to Pidgeot's Quick Search. So it's pretty rare that you end up needing a second. I think just the one is perfect for this deck. And then last but definitely not least for the trainer cards, we've got 2 of the 10th anniversary Space Center and 1 Desert Ruins. Why only 1 Desert Ruins? Because once you have Houndoom down, your opponent actually can't bump this stadium very effectively. They can't play their own stadiums. They can't play Windstorm to get rid of it. So as long as you have Houndoom locking your opponent, you can just ping them with Desert Ruins every single turn. 2 Space Center because it does a good job of, what does this guy do? Oh, it ignores Pokebodies on basics. So this does a good job versus all the Mew decks. It does a good job versus a lot of the other decks that can give you trouble. You lock Pokepowers with Pidgeot Delta. You lock Pokebodies with Space Center. And then you lock item cards with Houndoom. And you can complete a really, really, really tight lock versus your opponent. These are a really cool card, the 10th anniversary ones. They were handed out at the Houston Space Center 10th anniversary event. It's just such a cool thing that Pokemon did. They had an event to get kids interested in space travel and space exploration, and they had people go to the Houston Space Center, and they broadcasted like big Pokemon movies about space and like stuff like that on their huge, they have this huge screen, this huge movie theater type screen at the Houston Space Center, and they gave out this promo to everyone who went for their 10th anniversary. It's just such a cool event to happen. There was also, I believe, a Deoxys promo from that event. Just a really, really cool card with a lot of cool history from it behind like what the company was trying to do for the community. And I think this also marked a point where a lot of people realized after about 10 years of Pokemon that this was going to be like a multi-generational phenomenon. Like this was going to be something that this really like kind of solidified Pokemon as like this huge like thing in all of our lives, all of our generations' lives. And that it's a cool event, basically, for that reason alone. And that sums up all the trainer cards for this deck. The last part of this deck, of course, is the energy cards. You've got to have them. You can't play the game without them. Okay, some decks can, let's be real. But yeah, you got to play them. First things first, for the basics, you got 4 basic grass. Oh, come on, focus, baby. Okay, there we go. 4 basic grass. Again, I love the foiling from the Ruby Sapphire through whatever the heck sets those were. The early EX sets, I love the foiling. They look amazing on camera, as you can tell, but they look even better in person. Drawing them, it makes your brain just feel great. The full holo. Now, they're very difficult to find in nice condition because most people only have like 1 or 2 of them to begin with, and a lot of people don't have them in like the best of condition because they scratch kind of easily. But if you can, they're definitely the nicest looking reverse holos for the energies, in my opinion, that you can possibly find. Next up for the energies, so use the basic grass because it allows your Nidoqueen to attack for 1 energy if you have that turn 1 Nidoqueen thanks to rare candy, or if you just hit your first attach. The basic grass is better because it can attack. It's usually better than basic fighting. There are some instances where basic fighting is better. And then the other energy that you play are the double rainbow energies. This is so that you can attack with that power lariat as early as turn 2. You get the second attach, and the second attach gives you 3 energies total. The way this works is it can only be attached to an evolution Pokemon. It decreases your damage by 10, so it makes your Pokemon a little bit weaker. That being said, Nidoqueen still hits like a truck even when it's being decreased by 10. And it just does everything. It gives you 2 of any color, so it fixes for anything. It allows you to attack with Pidgeot if you need to. It allows you to attack with Pidgeot Delta if you need to. It allows you to even attack, I believe, with Houndoom if you need to. What does he do? Oh, he's not very good. Oh, that's Houndour. Hold up. Oh, he's alright, I guess. Houndoom, what does he do? Flip a coin if heads, the defending Pokemon is now paralyzed. I mean, if you need to attack with Houndoom in a pinch, if you need to take your last few prizes, you could even attack with Milotic if you're hitting for weakness, potentially. Maybe something that you might want to do. It just allows you to pivot your game plan, which is something that's super cool about this deck and this era, because you have these double rainbow energies, these things that promote you playing a bunch of different attackers, and these hold-on Pokemon that are also double rainbow energies. It allows you to really do anything with your deck, and it allows your deck to feel like it's using every part of it to the fullest extent, and I really like this card. I think this is like one of my favorite eras just because of this energy alone. And then the last few energy, we've got 4 of the Hold-On Good Luck energy, I like to call them. No, the Grass Lightning energy, of course, the Hold-On Grass Lightning. Come on, baby. This camera just keeps going out of focus. There's got to be a better way to fix that. Someone drop in the comments below if there's a better way to fix that. These are some of the coolest energies from Delta species. They look very suave, very chic. They look clean as fuck. You attach it over onto your Pidgeot Delta, and it turns on the Pidgeot Delta. So this is why you play the 4 of these, just so you can turn on your Pidgeot Delta. It also has another ability. If you have a basic grass attached to one of your Pokemon, it makes it so that Pokemon is unaffected by special conditions. So if you have a Nidoqueen, you can attach a basic grass, and then you can attach one of these, and then it'll stop you from being paralyzed or locked up in any sort of way, asleep, burned, whatever, poisoned, that sort of nonsense in the mirror match. Then, of course, for the last 2 energies, we've got a couple of tech ones. We've got 1 heal energy. When you attach this to one of your Pokemon, you heal 10 damage, and 1 status condition. Actually, is it every status condition? Hold up. Attach this, remove 1 damage counter and all status conditions from that Pokemon, which is amazing, obviously. Just heal 10. Can't ask for more than that. It's clutch. Sometimes you just need to heal 10 off your Nidoqueen to keep it around for a turn. And you can search for it very easily, search for all your tech cards very easily thanks to Pidgeot's quick search ability. And then the last tech energy is the Scramble energy. Now, if you are losing, let's say you kind of fell behind, or you're missing energy and you've dropped a prize, the Scramble energy does allow you to attack all in one turn with no attachments, because if you are down in prizes, it counts as 3 of any type of energy as long as it's attached to an evolved Pokemon. You slap this on a Nidoqueen, you got that powerful lariat ready to go, and you can get right back into the game if you've fallen behind. I love comeback energies like this. I think they're very strong, especially when you can tutor for them very easily thanks to the quick search. This is one of the coolest decks. I'm going to do more deck profiles of old school Pokemon stuff. I've been working on a couple of different stuff a couple of different lists with my buddy the Rare Hunter. We're going to be doing some gameplay as well. I hope to showcase this deck in a future video. It is legitimately one of the coolest and one of the most fun decks to play. The Nidoqueen Houndoom, the Queendoom list. Let me pull those guys out. Boom. Right there, baby. That's your thumbnail. Oh, shit. Okay, my hands are in the way. This is so difficult to do. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Smash like, subscribe. You know all of the vibes. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.